Ange Postecoglou to be sacked by Spurs. Winning the Europa League is not enough for the Australian. He is apparently, according to Football Insider, about to get the boot. A decision at the highest level at Spurs is saying that Ange Postecoglou, as well as he has done in the Europa League, it isn't enough, and the concerns about the Premier League season, the form domestically, are overshadowed what is their first trophy in what seems like a decade and more. Ange Postecoglou doing what he said at the start of the season, in that he would win a trophy in his second season in charge of Spurs. He's done it. He said what he said he's going to do, but the form for Spurs is that bad in the Premier League, and you cannot ignore the fact that Spurs have been absolutely shocking. But what I want to ask you in the comment section is, do you think that this is fair? Do you think that Ange Postecoglou deserves the sack? He's won a trophy, and it's his first trophy for Spurs in God knows how many years. Everybody was jubilant in that final, and then slap right back down to earth with a bang, and getting smashed by Brighton on the final day just made everybody realise that this is going to be what happens next season. There's no chance of a trophy next season if Ange is in charge. I think that's how they're looking at it. They have to be looking at it, because if you win a trophy and get into the Champions League, automatically thinking, this guy's done great, and let's go again next season. But you cannot have a Premier League season like that one. An absolute shocker from Spurs. 20 plus defeats in the league, 17th, like we said, the completely overshadowing a cup final win and the first trophy in over a decade by getting smashed at home 4-1 by Brighton on the last day. That has been happening week in, week out at Spurs. And I think now it does look like the way the Premier League is going, the standards of the Premier League are that you have to have actually done well in the league as well as done well in the cup if you think that is successful for a big football club. You could say that it's because Spurs won the Europa League, they had a better season than Arsenal. And a lot would argue that point. Look, this trophy in the trophy cabinet. And I don't even think they've dusted this off yet, this trophy, Spurs. And already we're looking like Ange isn't going to get to walk past it when he goes to the Spurs stadium anymore. He is out of the door. And this is the first report that we've seen of this. We've been waiting to see what happened. The transfer window opened today, and we were thinking that we were going to be getting all of the transfer news coming through, but this looks like the most significant piece of news of the day so far, and the first story that I've seen breaking of significance about Ange Postecoglou's future. Does he deserve to be given the boot is the question I'm wanting you all in the comment sections with. Is it important that you have a decent league position over winning a trophy? Now, you could easily use the blueprint, which was Manchester United last season. Erik ten Hag goes into the last game of the season against Manchester City for the FA Cup and wins it off the back of an absolute shocker of a season for the Reds. And that, I think, is exactly what Spurs will be looking at in this instance. It's like, yeah, we won the trophy. Thank you, we're back into the Champions League, but we've got the perfect get out here in sacking Ange Postecoglou, because that Premier League form was absolutely diabolical. And there is no excuse for Spurs finishing where they did with the quality of squad that they have got and the amount of money that's been spent. And I think that's how the board would look at it. If you were to ask me my own personal opinion on this and whether I think it's fair or not, I think, yeah, because I've witnessed this. I've seen it. And I knew that Manchester United needed to sack Ten Hag. And this is an even bigger scenario because this has got Spurs into the Champions League. Spurs will be absolutely annihilated in the Champions League if Ange is the manager. I think we know that. Look, he showed his pragmatic side in that final and ground out a result. That's not sustainable. We know that he tries it differently in the Europa League than what he did in the Premier League. And that was out of pure necessity and desperation, I think, for Ange Postecoglou. I don't think he knew exactly how to get the best out of his players. And that's proven in their league position. That is your bread and butter. And I think this is where it's at now. You could look at Mikel Arteta and him safely in a job ahead of Ange. And Ange has actually won something in his first 2 seasons. And Arteta's had nothing for 5 years. But you can see progression. And it does. Trophies do speak volumes for clubs. But it does cover over cracks of the infrastructure and the general progress of a football team. And you cannot say that Arsenal haven't been more consistent and progressive than Spurs. I think that's what wins the day now. Gone are the days when you win a trophy and you succeed. I think proof, like I said, is in the pudding and in the eating with Manchester United and Ten Hag. They backed him in the summer, and United have just backed up their worst ever Premier League season with another worst ever Premier League season because they weren't decisive enough in the summer. And I think they are the example for Spurs to look at. And I do believe this is where Spurs are going with it. And I think this is the reason behind the actual decision. And I think the Premier League is changing. I do. I think the standards of the Premier League now are that high that you just cannot get away with cup wins anymore. Cups are great, but they're not everything. I remember, I think it was Ole Gunnar Solskjaer said and came out with a quote, cups and trophies are there for managers' egos. And you could probably say that about Ange, in that he's going to win a trophy in his second season. And he will come back and say, look, I've done what I said. Now let's look at me a little bit differently and let's give me a little bit of credit. That's not going to fly in the Premier League. Spurs cannot finish 17th. So I think this is why we're getting this news today that Ange is going to be out of Tottenham Hotspur. Who comes in? That's a big question. Look, there's nothing definite and there's nothing official yet, but the stories are just about starting to float, and this is the sign as soon as the transfer window opens, the Spurs are making a move, and all of the noises around the Spurs stadium now are that Ange Postecoglou is going to be given his marching orders. Whether you think that's right or not, get into the comment section and let me know. This is Football Talks. Thank you everybody who has liked all of the other videos and subscribed to the channel. If you haven't already and you are new, please do hit the subscribe button. Stay tuned for all of the Premier League updates with every single Premier League club, particularly the big guns up at the top there, with all of the interesting news coming about. The window is open, but the biggest news so far is that Ange won't be spending any of that earned money that Spurs have got from being in the Champions League or winning the Europa League. It looks like he's about to get the boot. Let me know what you think, everybody. Like, share, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.